The staff mocked her, the manager told her to leave, and a group of rich socialites laughed in her face. But then, the glass doors opened, and in walked her husband. Not just any man, the billionaire owner of the entire Jade chain, with power in his stride and fire in his eyes. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. Because from that moment on, everyone who looked down on her was about to learn exactly who she was and how expensive their arrogance would be. "Lucas?" she whispered under her breath, hardly daring to believe her eyes. Lucas King, her husband. Or, more accurately, the notoriously private billionaire business magnate rumored to have his fingers in everything from tech to real estate, who also happened to be the man she'd fallen in love with and married in a quiet ceremony that few people even knew about. For a split second, she found herself torn between relief and embarrassment. She hadn't told Lucas about her trip to Jade Pavilion. He'd been away on business overseas, or so she believed. But here he stood, scanning the store with dark eyes that missed nothing. When those eyes settled on her, they softened immediately. "Nina," Lucas said, voice low but carrying easily across the hushed store. Iris Lane's jaw slackened. Diana White actually drew in a quick breath, and the staff seemed collectively stunned. Many recognized him instantly. This was Lucas King, heir to the King Corporation, the ultimate boss behind Jade Pavilion's parent group. Carl looked like someone had just stomped on his foot. He managed a wavering bow. Mr. King, we didn't know you'd be visiting today." Lucas barely acknowledged Carl. He moved to Nina in 2 strides, brushing a gentle hand against her cheek, as if to confirm she was really there. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, ignoring everyone else. Nina felt tears threaten at the corners of her eyes, though she tried to keep her composure. "Yes, it's just some misunderstandings, nothing major. Nothing." His gaze flickered over to Iris, who was frozen near a display case, and to Diana White, whose eyes were wide. Then he noticed Mason and nodded in mild recognition. "Mason?" "Mr. King," Mr. Mason replied, bowing slightly in respect. Carl tried to edge closer, no doubt hoping to do damage control. But Lucas pinned him with a stare that could have carved steel. "I heard my wife was treated poorly here. Is that right?" Carl's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Nina could practically see the sweat forming on his brow. Lucas turned to Mr. Mason. "Tell me what happened." Mr. Mason spoke with measured calm. "From what I observed, the staff neglected Mrs. King's request. They pushed her toward the cheapest items in a rude manner, tried to turn her away, and then humiliated her in front of other customers. I arrived in time to see the final stage, though I suspect it had been going on longer." An audible gasp escaped from the group. Iris took a step backward, practically bumping into Diana. The flamboyant socialite veneer she displayed moments ago vanished. Meanwhile, Carl's face was turning purple. "Sir, I didn't realize she was your wife. If I'd known..." Lucas's eyes flared. "So it's acceptable to bully customers you consider unimportant? That's your policy?" Carl swallowed. "No, of course not. But we have a VIP program, and the staff focuses on higher value transactions. We simply follow standard procedure." "You call it standard procedure to mock a woman, block her from buying what she wants, and then insult her budget?" Lucas's voice remained calm, but there was an undercurrent of anger that made the air thick. Diana White, unable to remain silent, cleared her throat and attempted a graceful smile. "Mr. King, there's been a misunderstanding. This lady, Mrs. King, as you say, only wanted a lower-priced piece. We were under the impression that she..." Lucas held up a hand, halting her. "I didn't ask for your input." He faced Carl again. "Close down the store for the day. We'll conduct an internal investigation. Anyone found harassing my wife, anyone who took part in humiliating her, will be fired immediately." Carl's eyes widened to the size of saucers. He looked around desperately for support, but none came. Iris was no help. She edged away. Diana pressed her lips together. The other employees seemed too frightened to speak. Realizing none of them would or could defend him, Carl tried a different angle. We deeply apologize. We're willing to do anything to make it right for Mrs. King. A full refund, plus a more expensive piece at no charge. We never intended to offend someone of your stature. You offended my wife, not because of her stature, but because you assumed she wasn't worth your time. Lucas snapped. Don't insult her by acting generous now. Mason, you'll handle the rest. Yes, Mr. King, Mr. Mason said promptly, stepping forward. Carl, you'll pack your belongings. Today is your last day with Jade Pavilion. Carl's voice shook. No, please, you can't do that. This job is my livelihood. I've been with the company for years. Have mercy. Lucas ignored him, stepping closer to Nina, placing a protective hand on the small of her back. I'm sorry I didn't arrive sooner. His voice was so soft, Nina almost teared up again. Diana White, feeling the shock of everything, tried to salvage her own pride. Mr. King, I had no idea. If I'd known she was your... Lucas cut her off. I don't care what you thought. You participated in humiliating a woman who did nothing to you. That's not a misunderstanding. That's cruelty. Diana's complexion drained. But before she could respond, Iris let out a nervous laugh. We're so sorry. Didn't realize. Maybe we went too far. Mrs. King, we were only teasing. We had no idea you... Nina gazed at Iris, then at Diana, her voice quiet. It didn't seem like teasing to me. Do you treat all strangers that way? If so, I hope you realize how cruel it can sound to someone on the receiving end. Silence settled. The employees no longer wore smug looks. Some even glanced at Nina with a hint of regret. Yet a few of them, especially the ones who'd joined in mocking her, were bright red with humiliation. The store felt as though it were being suffocated by tension. Lucas turned to Mr. Mason once more. Ensure that the staff who participated in the harassment are disciplined or fired, whichever your policies dictate. I'll expect a written report within the week. Of course, Mr. King, Mr. Mason said, bowing his head. I'll handle it personally. Lucas then guided Nina toward the exit. She couldn't help noticing the parted crowd as they walked, employees practically throwing themselves out of the way, a hush following them like a storm cloud. She held the small shopping bag with Grandpa Gray's bracelet pressed to her chest, her mind reeling at how drastically events had changed the moment Lucas arrived. The second they were outside, Nina inhaled deeply, trying to shake off the swirl of emotions. She glanced up at Lucas. How did you know I was here? She asked, voice trembling from the adrenaline still pumping through her veins. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. I found out you were planning to shop for a gift. I caught wind that Jade Pavilion's staff has been less than welcoming to everyday customers sometimes. I had a hunch you might come here. I wanted to ensure you were all right. She managed a shaky smile. I was fine. At least, I think I was eventually. Thanks for coming. His brows knit together. You shouldn't have had to deal with that at all. If I'd shown up sooner. Don't blame yourself, she said quickly, slipping a hand into his. I never told you I was coming here. And I wanted to do something on my own. Lucas exhaled slowly. As long as you're not hurt. He glanced at the store behind them, where staff members darted to and fro, closing the doors early under Mr. Mason's stern direction. Those employees won't do that to you or anyone else ever again. Nina swallowed, torn between relief and sadness. I'm glad they're being held accountable, but it's such a toxic culture. They probably learned it from managers who valued only big money transactions. Lucas looked at her with a certain tenderness. We can't fix everything in one day, but we can start by making sure places under my control treat people decently. Then he guided her away from the store, weaving through the crowd as they left the mall. The drive home was quiet, with Nina leaning against Lucas in the back seat of a sleek black car, courtesy of his personal driver. She couldn't stop turning the newly purchased jade beads over in her hands. Despite the drama, she felt content that she'd found the right gift for Grandpa Gray. Yet she also felt like the day had been a turning point in some other sense. Maybe it was the first time she'd really felt the gap between her world and Lucas's. She loved him for who he was, not for his wealth, but she couldn't deny that having a billionaire husband came with complexities. People worshipping him, employees fearing him, or opportunists trying to manipulate him. And, as she'd just witnessed, it gave him an ability to right wrongs instantly, but also overshadowed her attempts to stand on her own. She tried not to let that overshadow the relief she felt. After all, a good chunk of Jade Pavilion's staff had done everything in their power to insult and belittle her. The fact that Lucas arrived in time to help was something she'd never forget. When they finally reached home, an elegant townhouse that mixed classic architecture with modern minimalism, Nina and Lucas slipped off their shoes at the entrance. She let out a long sigh of exhaustion, sinking into a plush sofa. "I can't believe how rude some people can be," she murmured, resting her head against the cushions. Lucas settled beside her, draping an arm around her shoulders. "It's not uncommon in those high-end stores, unfortunately. They chase big commissions, see a casual outfit, and make assumptions. Doesn't make it right." She studied the bracelet again, each bead carved into a lotus shape, a symbol of purity. "I still love it," she said, letting her eyes linger on the faint swirl in the jade. "Grandpa Gray will be so happy." Lucas took a moment before responding, gazing at her with something akin to awe. "You're always thinking of others," he said softly, "even after they treated you so badly." Nina shrugged, leaning her cheek against his shoulder. "I guess I just want to make sure my life choices align with what Grandpa taught me. He always said that sincerity and kindness show one's true worth." He pressed a gentle kiss to her hair. "He raised you well." A pause. "Tomorrow, let's have dinner with him. I want to see his reaction when he opens your gift." She smiled, warmth filling her chest. "He'll probably complain that I spent too much, but he'll wear it every day, I'm sure." Lucas's phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen. Some urgent text from his corporate offices. With a sigh, he put it aside. "They can wait. Right now, I just want to be with you." Nina closed her eyes briefly, cherishing the moment. She realized that no matter how high the walls of wealth and status loomed around them, Lucas remained her anchor. The man behind the money was thoughtful, caring, and fiercely protective when it came to her. The next day, she accompanied Lucas to a quieter Jade Pavilion location, one he'd personally vetted after the fiasco. She wanted to see if they had anything else Grandpa Gray might like, maybe a small jade pendant for luck. This time, the staff practically bent over backward at the slightest sign of her. She noticed Lucas's slight discomfort at their obsequiousness, and she felt it too. The store manager couldn't stop apologizing for the unfortunate incident at the other branch. That evening, they drove out of the city to Grandpa Gray's countryside home. He was a robust man with a full head of white hair, eyes that sparkled with mischief, and a laugh that could fill the entire house. The moment Nina stepped in, he enveloped her in a bear hug. "My dear girl, you look tired. Are you working too hard?" She shook her head, a big smile lighting her face. "I'm fine, Grandpa. Busy, but fine. I brought you something." Lucas greeted Grandpa Gray with genuine warmth, which made Nina happy. Despite the hush-hush nature of their marriage, Grandpa Gray knew everything. The older man chuckled when he saw the little gift box. "What could this be?" Nina watched anxiously as he opened it and beamed at the jade prayer beads. "Oh, a lotus design. Very thoughtful. This is quite refined." "Thank you, child." He slipped it onto his wrist, flexing his hand to admire the faint glimmer of polished jade. Nina felt her eyes prickle with tears of joy. "I'm glad you like it. It's from Jade Pavilion. Top-notch craftsmanship." Grandpa Gray's gaze sharpened. "Don't tell me you spent a fortune on it." Nina laughed softly. "Not exactly, but let's say it cost a chunk of my savings. Totally worth it, though." "Well, it's perfect," Grandpa Gray declared. patting her hand. Then he turned to Lucas, raising an eyebrow. "And you, young man, are you treating my granddaughter well?" Lucas smiled. "I try my best. She was the one who had a rough day, dealing with some unfortunate store employees. But it's taken care of." Grandpa Gray's face darkened with worry. "Anyone bullied my Nina?" She shrugged it off. "It's nothing. Just some shallow folks who only see dollar signs. The important thing is, I got the bracelet for you." Grandpa Gray nodded, though Nina could see he made a mental note to talk to her about it later. The evening passed with pleasant conversation and good food, neighbors and relatives dropping by to celebrate early. She listened to them chatter about the party arrangements, the big dinner, all the friends Grandpa Gray had invited. It warmed her heart, reminding her that money wasn't everything. Genuine connections and love were what truly mattered. Meanwhile, Lucas discreetly took a call, stepping out onto the porch. She overheard bits of stern conversation. "Yes, gather the data," he was saying. "I want everyone who mistreats customers out of the company. Jade Pavilion's brand stands for quality, and that includes how we treat people. No exceptions." Nina walked away, letting him handle it. She felt a swell of gratitude that he cared enough to make a bigger change. Maybe the next time a woman walked in wearing plain clothes, nobody would scoff at her or assume she didn't deserve respect. As Grandpa Gray's birthday approached, Nina's days were filled with finalizing party details. Even though Lucas kept a low public profile, few people even knew he was married, they both agreed to attend the celebration openly, with no need to hide. Nina helped the caterers arrange flowers, table settings, and music for the evening. People bustled around the old estate, and she was happy to see how excited Grandpa Gray was about everything. When the big day arrived, Nina wore a simple but elegant dress in pastel green, carefully chosen to complement the color of Grandpa Gray's new jade bracelet. She pinned her hair back with a small jade clip that Lucas had gifted her the night before. By the time guests filled the yard, the place thrummed with festive energy. Laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses. Lucas arrived a little late from a business meeting, stepping out of a sleek black SUV. He wore a tailored suit, tie undone, just enough to appear relaxed, and carried himself with quiet confidence as he greeted Grandpa Gray with a respectful hug. Everyone present did a double take when they saw how close he was to Nina. Many had assumed she was single. Rumors flew in hushed whispers. "Who is that gorgeous man with Nina? Isn't that Lucas King, the billionaire?" "Wait, what's going on?" Iris Lane was there too, having finagled an invitation through some mutual acquaintances. She practically choked on her champagne when she realized Nina was hosting the party with Lucas by her side. She tried to keep a low profile, but Nina spotted her lurking at the edge of the crowd, looking deeply uncomfortable. A short time into the party, Nina stepped aside to gather more napkins from the kitchen. On her way, she ran into Iris near a side table loaded with desserts. The other woman's complexion turned an odd shade of pink. Nina was in no mood for conflict, but Iris approached, eyes darting nervously. "Hey," Iris said stiffly, barely meeting Nina's gaze. "Happy birthday to your grandpa or whatever. I, just wanted to say that about that day at Jade Pavilion. Maybe I took it too far." Nina paused. She could see Iris's pride warring with her fleeting attempt at an apology. So she waited, letting the silence stretch. Iris cleared her throat. "I didn't know you were... if I'd realized you were actually married to Lucas King, I wouldn't have, mocked me," Nina finished for her, though she kept her tone neutral. "So you only regret it because of who my husband is?" Iris's eyes flashed with discomfort. "Look, you don't have to put it that way. Sometimes we say things in the heat of the moment." Nina studied Iris for a moment. "You and your friends said a lot of cruel things. Not just that day. You made judgments about me, about my finances. And even if I wasn't married to Lucas, it wouldn't be okay." Iris's lips tightened, but she seemed at a loss for a comeback. Finally, she grunted. "Fine. I'm sorry, all right? I was out of line." Then, scowling at the plate of petit fours on the table, she mumbled, "Enjoy your party." and hurried off. Nina inhaled deeply, exhaling the tension of that exchange. She felt a small sense of closure, if not a perfect one. Sometimes an apology wasn't about forging a new friendship, but simply ending the animosity. As the evening deepened, Grandpa Gray gave a little speech, thanking everyone for coming. He praised Nina for her thoughtfulness, proudly displaying the jade bracelet on his wrist for all to see. The crowd clapped. Lucas stood next to Nina, quietly smiling, always careful not to overshadow Grandpa Gray's moment. A short time later, in a corner of the yard lit by lanterns, Lucas took Nina's hand and squeezed it gently. She leaned against him, letting the noise of the party swirl around them. "Thank you for everything," she whispered. "I feel so relieved now, just being here, after all that nonsense at Jade Pavilion." He traced a thumb over her knuckles. "You never have to face that alone again," he murmured, voice low with determination. A hint of laughter bubbled up in her. "Maybe we should get you a set of plain clothes. Then you could walk around incognito, see how these high-end stores treat random customers." Lucas's lip quirked. "I'd probably blow my cover the moment I tried to pay with an unmarked black card. But it's a tempting idea." They lingered there, the warmth between them solidified by the knowledge they'd overcome another ugly brush with prejudice. Nina realized that while the day had begun with public humiliation in a fancy store, it ended with Grandpa Gray's happy grin, Lucas by her side, and a sense of triumph. Not because she was married to a billionaire, but because she'd held onto her dignity and recognized that she deserved respect. Everyone did, regardless of how many zeros decorated their bank accounts. Later that night, after the party wound down and the last guests trickled out, Nina and Lucas stood in the foyer, shoulders brushing. Grandpa Gray dozed in a recliner, the jade beads still on his wrist. Nina couldn't stop smiling as she watched him. "I think I gave him the perfect gift," she whispered. Lucas nodded. "You did. The best gift, though, is you being here, celebrating with him." He reached out, lacing their fingers together. "You have a way of making everyone around you feel special." She tightened her hold on his hand. "I'm lucky to have you." He opened his mouth as if to respond, but Nina raised a finger to his lips, smiling. "We've had enough drama for a week. Let's just be grateful for tonight." He smiled back, and they locked eyes in the hush of the foyer. No more needed to be said. In the quiet, Nina felt the stirrings of hope that the Jade Pavilion fiasco would help open more eyes. Maybe, with Lucas's intervention, fewer customers would be cast aside by rude managers. Maybe staff would learn that everyone deserved a fair chance, no matter how plain their clothes looked or how small their budget was. She turned away from these thoughts, letting contentment settle over her. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. Life always did, but they'd face them together. If you liked this story, go ahead and hit that like button. Leave a comment about your thoughts. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And please subscribe for more tales that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. See you next time.